Thank you, Vilma. And let's now move on to the final part of our evening, which is our main panel here. And after that, some very, very nice music that you also heard in the documentary trailer in the hall. So, what we're going to look at next is what actions must be taken on climate intervention research and policy to prevent climate risks. Please welcome to the stage to tell us more about this panel from Moderator Arctis, Ellen Haaslahti. Take it away.
Thank you, everyone. My name is Ellen Haaslahti, and I work as the network coordinator for Moderator Arctis to ensure that nobody is left behind when we go through these important discussions and plan the way for a safer future. And I'd like to invite our panelists for this final panel. And first, I would like to invite Pirita Näkkäläjärvi. Pirita is a Sami with a unique profile combining indigenous rights advocacy and global business. Pirita is an elected member of the Sami parliament in Finland and a member of the Inari Municipal Council. She has also had a long career as an advisor for mergers and acquisitions for Finnish and European companies. Pirita is working on her doctoral researcher at Sibelius Academy, researching Saamioik and cultural appropriation. Pirita is from a reindeer herding and entrepreneurial family in Inari, Sápmi, and her mother tongue is Northern Sami. Welcome.
Thank you.
And as our second panel, I'd like to invite here Tapio Reinikainen. Tapio is a negotiator in the Montreal Protocol that was mentioned earlier, world's most successful multilateral environmental agreement, which protects the ozone layer and mitigates global warming. He also chairs a constituency in the Multilateral Fund to implement the Montreal Protocol. Tapio is also a member of the International Ozone Commission and Ozone Research Managers of the Vienna Convention. Welcome, Tapio.
Thank you.
And last but not least, I'd like to welcome here Johanna Kentala-Lehtonen. Who is the Secretary General of the Finnish Expert Panel for Sustainable Development, which is an independent science panel working at the auspices of the Prime Minister's office. Previously, she has been responsible for the Finnish EU policy coordination on the Green Deal at the EU Affairs Department of the Prime Minister's office, and also worked at the Climate Department of the Ministry of the Environment. She is a Doctor of Social Science with a doctoral thesis on international climate politics, and she is also a governing board member of the Nestling Foundation. Welcome all. So, we've had a lot of new information today, a lot of difficult topics, and I guess it is up to us to make some sense out of this and think about also a kind of local approach as we are all living around here. So I would like to begin with a question that you can all answer to. So according to the expert panel convened by the UNEP, and we already have seen the report there, the conversation process on these solar climate interventions needs to involve discussion on a broad range of issues with all stakeholders. And I was thinking that in order to make this happen in the Arctic and Finland, what is needed in your opinion? What should be done and by who, maybe? Pirita, would you like to begin?
Yeah, thank you. The topic that we're discussing today, climate repair and climate interventions, is a hugely challenging topic. And you might know that many indigenous peoples globally, and also some Sami organizations, are very critical of certain climate intervention measures and initiatives. We at the Sami Parliament in Finland don't have an official opinion. We never had to make an official opinion on these topics, but I think in the future we will have to. I understand where the reservations come from. We have had a long history with scientists, and there's an old Sami joke coming from the times when we were nomadic people and living in the Sami lavvu, in the Sami teepees, that the Sami family consists of mom, dad, a number of children, and an anthropologist in the corner of the lavvu. And unfortunately, we've had a history that we have, and sorry to be so blunt, scientists like yourselves coming to our land, sucking our traditional knowledge, making a career out of it, and we never hear back. So I understand the reservations. And then another point I want to make, and I hope you remember this one. On the other hand, we are winter people. We are an Arctic indigenous people. Our livelihoods, our life is adapted to the cold climate. Our animals, like the reindeer, salmon, and so on, they are adapted to the cold. So we really would like to keep our winters. So it's my personal opinion that we need to keep all the options open. And it's great to be part of the discussion, so thank you for inviting us.
Thank you, Pirita. I understand that you also mean that we should be including more indigenous voices, and I'm so happy that you're here, for example, in doing so. So, Tapio, would you like to comment on the question I was asking about how should we make this discussion to include all the stakeholders in Finland? What do you think?
There are so many aspects that it's like hard to decide from where to start, but I'd like to first thanks all the organizers, the wonderful event that you have been organizing on very topical issue, and there are many concepts that might be not so common for participants, but we all learn together. But I would like to add one more very useful concept to this discussion by asking you, do any of you know what is DNHS? DNHS. You know, anyone, I can't see. Please go ahead and answer. I can't see. That's right. Good.
I think it was Atte Harjanne, one of our members of the parliament.
Tämä on hyödyllinen EU-konsepti ja se on tässä yhteydessä aika käyttökelpoinen, koska niin kuin tässä pyritään tekemään joku interventio ja olisi tärkeää myös katsoa, että siitä ei olisi muille ympäristökysymyksille niin kuin merkittävää haittaa, eli do not significant harm while mitigating the climate change or global warming. Tämä on yksi niin kuin tärkeä lähtökulma meiltä tähän näin, ja itse kun tulen niin kuin Montrealin pöytäkirjan, joka on yläilmakehän otsonikerroksen suojelusopimus, niin tämä koskettaa niin kuin meitä, ja ei ole sillä lailla niin kuin kovin lokaalinen että, kysymys, vaan on niin kuin erinomaisen globaali. Jos ajatellaan, niin kuin, että minkälaista harmia joistakin näistä interventioista voi tulla, niin ennen kaikkea tulee mieleen tämä stratospheric aerosol injection, eli rikkidioksidin tai muun aineen ruiskuttaminen yläilmakehään tai stratosfääriin. Ja tämä on niin kuin mun mielestä kriittinen ero näiden monien interventioiden välillä, että kun puututaan tuonne stratosfääriin, niin se on niin kuin aika harva paikka. Siellä on vähän ainetta ja yksi aine on valtavan tärkeä, otsoni, joka suojelee meitä.
Tapio, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I think some of our guests don't understand Finnish, so we might have to.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay. I was actually going to maybe bring this up that we have during the past days been discussing a lot about the accessibility in this discussion.
Absolutely.
But so that it would make sense also to, as a service to the audience, where I can imagine that many of you might speak Finnish, so it might be more accessible. But I think
I'll keep
stick in English. But
yes,
when we move on to the audience questions, then please go ahead and use whichever language of those two that we understand.
Sorry, Ellen, and those friends who are not Finnish speakers. This is, of course, English-speaking seminar. And so I was starting about the do no significant harm principle, which is very useful concept in here. While it means that while we are doing interventions to mitigate something, we shouldn't do any harm, significant harm to another issue or a problem. And so stratospheric aerosol injection is something that we have somewhat critical attitude, but I come to this later on, and we can move forward. Thank you.
Yes, Johanna, you can also comment on the question about what kind of discussion we should be having in Finland regarding these issues. But maybe I could add already to that one question for you, especially also regarding the state of this kind of discussion. What do you think it's like in the international field of sustainability and policy regarding climate interventions? Do you see this kind of discussion there where you work?
Yeah, I have to say that very important issues were already raised here, and good to add another question, but if I start still pondering a little bit what is needed and what kind of discussion. So I think that this event has really lightened up and started maybe a discussion that needs to continue, and I think it's very brave to bring it up and especially to challenge the paradigm, and good to show that we need to start a new discussion, and we need to understand where we stand regarding the climate change, and what is what can we still do about it. On the international sustainability level, I haven't seen much discussion on this yet, but of course there was already reference to what US science body is doing and starting this kind of research. And I have to say that what comes to my mind very as a very good analogy is what happened with the GMO 20 years ago, when there was no international agreement on how to advance with it. And now we have seen that different parts of the globe have moved to different directions, and we have seen harm, but we have also seen good results from some research, and we see that in some parts of the globe we must use these technologies. And at the same time, EU has stand by and watched how the thing is developing elsewhere and denied it here. And I think that this shouldn't happen again, that we should now understand that the research is needed everywhere, and we need to have this discussion already. And I think that it's very important to bring it to the political level as well, because lately the carbon removal has started to gain more momentum, and it's started to be a discussion, and maybe it's time to bring also this issue on the debate.
Yes, good to hear your thoughts already, and I agree with you, Johanna, that maybe we need like a beforehand better understanding as soon as possible. Maybe to take from that, you mentioned governing these kind of techniques. Tapio, I could ask from you, In your perspective, what kind of things should be considered if we wanted to establish a governance framework for solar climate interventions, experiments and deployment?
At the moment, in my understanding, there is not anything in place. There is only UNEA resolution, draft resolution from 2019, and where it's recommended that this kind of assessment, which is now done actually by UNEP and also Montreal Protocol Scientific Assessment Panel, these have started the discussion now. So basically, first steps are taken. So that's the first thing. I think to get it into the international discussion. Maybe second thing would be banning of private enterprises of doing on their own any kind of intervention. And in general, I think it's not timely to start any kind of interventions in stratosphere at the moment without preparing proper governance framework for that. It may be under UNFCCC or Montreal Protocol or UNEA or as a separate, whatever it is, but it would need to be established just in case these kind of interventions someday need to be done, which would be the last resort. The first resorts are, of course, mitigation, and mitigation. And there are also would need to be done some paradigm change in the mitigation side.
I agree. Thank you for your insights. Perhaps I could also follow up on that. Regarding the mitigation, we heard a very powerful speech from Anni about how it hasn't been really enough and what we might be already losing, although we would continue with the mitigation. I was thinking, would you like to comment on that why we are in this kind of state? So some Earth system damage is already unavoidable, even with sharp emission reductions, and yet climate policy does not aim to prevent this. And do you have any ideas that you would like to share here? That why do you think that we kind of feel that we are forced to accept a great deal of damage already? Does somebody wants to begin? It's a big question.
If you colleagues don't want to start, I could continue on that. It's clear that we are in a very dangerous zone. Already in July, 1.5 centigrade was extended. It was like the warmest July ever in a recorded history, and we are in dangerous stage where the tipping points, as was earlier discussed here also, are very close. That maybe also some of them taking place, and the process is going on, as we heard from previous presentations. Something needs to be done really quickly, and even though I said many times mitigation, there needs to be within the mitigation range new paradigm change, but to little bit comfort people that we have also been able to do something successfully. For example, in the Montreal Protocol, we have avoided already 135 gigatons of very strong climate gases worth of 135 gigatons CO2 equivalent by phasing out chlorinated substances. And so that's about 1 centigrade of avoidance of global warming.
Tapio, go ahead, but could you keep it closer. So
Oh, yeah.
the stream will get it on. Thank you.
Maybe also it's dependent how you calculate. You know, if this mitigation effort wouldn't have not been done, the CFC levels would have risen so high that even in the mid-latitudes there would have been an ozone hole, and that would have meant that the carbon sinks would have been largely destroyed in a very large areas, and some scientists have calculated that it's worth of one additional centigrade of warming. So there is a tremendous history in the Montreal Protocol of avoiding global warming, and something further can be done still within that framework, and we are now doing implementing Kigali Amendment, which made Montreal Protocol also a climate treaty, not only ozone treaty, phasing down HFCs, superclimate gases, and then we are negotiating currently of additional measures to take energy efficiency efforts related to the phasing down of HFCs. But that's all we can do almost, and the rest has to be done by other parties and that in other fora, mainly Paris Agreement. So, and they need to accelerate their work. Otherwise, we are in a very, very deep trouble.
Yeah, maybe I can continue from there. From our point of view, speaking from the world of indigenous peoples, it has taken too long to integrate our indigenous traditional knowledge into policy making and into science as well. But that's something that can be improved, and I'm so happy to tell you and share with you that here in Finland we have a very unique arrangement that came into effect about a week ago. So as part of the new Climate Act, new legislation, we established a Sami climate panel where we have our scientists, also Finnish scientists, and our traditional knowledge holders sitting together and being part of climate policy and policy making. And it's really the first time in the world that something like this is established. So Finland can be very proud because this means that our traditional knowledge, indigenous traditional knowledge and scientific knowledge are treated as equal sources of information. And that's how it should be, because that's how we can come up with better solutions. I really believe in that.
Yeah, maybe if I can continue a little bit, maybe on the psychological side, what comes to this question, that why do we accept so much damage already? And I think that it has to do a lot of psychological issues, but one might be that if we understood the amount of the destruction we already accept, we would have to accept at the same time that we need to change a lot of in our normal lifestyles, especially in the Western world. So it's the dramatic systemic change that is needed, and people are not good at looking at that they need to change, because we always think it's safer to stay where we are. It's more risky to go somewhere we don't know what it means. And in this, I think what we would need more is utopias of a better future, and what could be better in the future where the climate issue is resolved. And I don't see enough this, and this is also a psychological issue, that people are very good in imagining dystopias, so the worst possible catastrophes. And we are seeing and thinking of these all the time, so we are practically also going to this direction. So we should much more think what is the better we want to have, and try to build on that. And I think that is something we really need in the society a lot more. What should be done differently, and it would make the situation better.
Thank you, Johanna. I couldn't agree more. And it's not too late for that, I hope. And thank you also for sharing all of your insights. And maybe now we have had a lot of discussion going here, so I would like to already open the discussion together with all of you. So we would like to have some audience questions now and keep discussing and perhaps keep our answers pretty concise so there's more discussion going on. So please, if anyone has a question, you can always tell it in Finnish or English if you prefer. We have there people bringing you the microphone, so please use that. And if you want to direct your question to somebody, just please do so, or yes.
Hi, my question is for maybe focused on to Tapio. So firstly, I agree with not letting private entities going kind of full rogue with applying geoengineering. But I wanted to ask that when making all of these policies and frameworks, how fast or how slow is the policy making process, at least in your level? And what are the things that can be done faster? Because obviously we're in a big hurry. Yeah.
That's a really good question. My answer basically is that it has been too slow, and the state of alertness has not been sufficient so far. And what basically we should do is to establish governance framework for that rather soon than later. And in case kind of very rapid warming would take place, for example, if methane clatrates or some other situation would rapidly change the concentrations of climate gases in the atmosphere, and the warming would happen very abruptly. So for that case, I think there should be a governance structure. It's totally different thing than like allowing us to sit down and kind of relieve the effort level in mitigation and other measures. So rather soon than later, but anyway, these processes are quite slow, so it's better to start early.
Thank you. And do we have another question? Is the mic already?
I have a mic.
Yes, please.
Okay. I'm Tuulia Reponen from Elokapina, and I have a question, actually two. Sorry.
Sorry, we can't really see you.
Yeah, I have two questions. One question is for all the panelists and for everybody in the audience to think about. And maybe we hear an answer from the panel as well. And the second question is directed at Pirita. So I have heard many times here it is evening the pronoun we. We have believed this old paradigm and we should be dreaming this new paradigm, or we are not courageous enough to dream about positive futures. And I want to ask us, who is the we? Is there one we that is with the old paradigm? And is there one we that is fighting for the new paradigm? Or is there a multitude of communities pulling this rope in different directions? And is there a power struggle that we should address more tonight? And a bit connected to that, I want to ask Pirita to discuss more what are the concerns that the Sami community has. I'm very deeply interested in hearing that and learn more about them. Thank you.
Okay, well, maybe I'll start with the we question, a very difficult question. But from the indigenous point of view, indigenous peoples need to be in the decision-making processes, in the governance models, everything. We need to be included. And it's not because, you know, it would be nice to offer our traditional knowledge and so on. That's, of course, important. But the reason, for example, here in the Arctic, in Sápmi, which is our area divided into the Finnish, Swedish, Norwegian, and Russian part, the reason that we need to be included is that we have rights. And this is something that is forgotten. This is something that is forgotten, especially here in Helsinki and in the other capitals of our kind of mother countries. We indeed have rights. Indigenous rights are really, really powerful. They're really strong. And we have a lot of rights to our lands and waters and the climate and the environment as a whole. So we need to be there, involved. Just like in this event, you can see there's a big group of Sami young people organizing this event. So we own this event and this discussion already, and I'm really proud of that. And then, before I let my colleagues continue, on the criticism, I think there were kind of procedural criticism and then kind of more to do with the impact of the solar management. So if I understand correctly, the project that was going on 2 years ago on the Swedish side of Sápmi was something that was brought from the US without the knowledge of the Sami people there, but also without the knowledge of the Swedish government. So I can imagine that there was a lot of criticism. So again, we need to give consent, free, prior, and informed consent to projects that impact our way of life. So this is an example, and I think that's why the big pushback. And then there were concerns about, so what happens if the solar geoengineering stops? Is there going to be a huge increase in temperatures? You know, all the unknowns and unknowns that were discussed here, I think were part of the concern. And then one concern that I've seen, especially from our Indigenous brothers and sisters from the US, is that what will happen with actions like this to the bond between environment, nature, and the human? And are we breaking and disturbing something that is sacred and shouldn't be done? So understandable, but my personal opinion is that we need to keep on researching and we need to keep on trying to understand. And I was really admiring your time scales on the graph. So your time scales were going to 2,300. I do some modeling in my financial modeling in my work. They usually go to, if I'm lucky, to 2030. So wow, the work that you are doing, it's amazing. And I think we should continue to do this work, but bearing in mind the risks.
I go back to the power struggle question, which I think is very topical. And of course, one reason that I think this debate, having it largely in the society, won't happen very soon, it should happen sooner than later, is definitely that there are interests which are conflicting. We have already seen it in many perspectives, and of course there are also in this debate and in this regard, and I think it came also in the earlier speeches very well that there are a lot of known unknowns and unknown unknowns, which I like as a concepts very much, that we don't know the effects, but we know that they are different for different regions, and we have to know more before there can be decisions. So research is the first thing that we need to have more.
Yeah, who are we? I think it's really important decision. I think that definition. I think that we come from there to ownership, and in environmental issues, I have been in that opinion that the ownership is within each individual as well as groups that we form. And for example, when we are discussing about Arctic momentum and Arctic issues, I think the special rights are within the Sami community, and while we are trying there to protect the snow and the cold and the conditions where their livelihoods are depending on, we also need to understand that also the ozone depletion hits worst to the Arctic regions. We had already 2011 not only Antarctic ozone hole, but we had Arctic ozone hole, and these kind of things are affecting the people who live in the north above the polar circle most. So that's one example, definitely. And for the ownership, I think that it's really important that young people raise their voices and demand from governments and people like us working in the governments that we should do more. And also think sometimes out of the box, and I'm suggesting here now kind of one thing which is like out of the box thinking when we are talking about Paris Agreement. And this is a little bit of news maybe, or new type of thinking that we are trying to control emissions through nationally determined contributions, so promises, nationally defined promises that how much we are reducing emissions compared to baseline. That's what is done in the Paris Agreement. In the Montreal Protocol, we are agreeing that all countries are reducing production of these substances and consumption of these substances. So if we transfer this kind of thinking to the other climate gases, so main climate gases, CO2, nitrous oxide, methane, it would mean that we would need to step by step set schedules when to stop producing fossil fuels and technology by technology. So not all in one go, because that would cause large social problems. But once the timetable is set, the innovations start to arise. That's exactly what happened in the Montreal Protocol, and that would happen also if that kind of strategy change, or not necessarily change, but to complement the current paradigm and the way to go. And nowadays there are technological alternatives for most of technologies, so this might be a way to go. So give time enough, give some exemptions, technology by technology, and then set limitations to those countries who don't agree on that. So that is something for which I wish to be further discussed. Not necessarily, it can be discussed now, but something for food for thought.
Yes, food for thought, because right now we have very little time. So perhaps just some final words from you. So could you answer with a very concise few words answer that we have here, for example, the tomorrow stories and the scenarios that you mentioned, like utopias. Like what kind of changes are you especially working for? Perhaps in this context that we have, so climate risk especially, like what is your takeaway from this that you will keep continuing, like working for the best case scenarios that we can have at this point of climate change?
Maybe I'll start. From our point of view, we need to be part of all of these discussions, and we're always happy to come and participate in all sorts of things as equal participants and as equal partners, because that's the best way to go forward together.
I think that this was very useful kind of shaking and alerting event for myself, and thanks for the organizers that you kind of have jumped out of the box and shaking and rattling the box a little bit. So I think that's really quite necessary. Something new will certainly emerge. Not everything that is what has been in the agenda is suitable, but all of them need to be studied, and I think that's a good takeaway from here.
It's very easy to agree with Tapio. I think also that getting a new ideas and also seeing how fruitful and important it is to work together with youth and with indigenous people, with different groups in the society, and really continue the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And thank you for
Thank
the
you.
question.
Kiitos.